Welcome to Unmute Yourself, the podcast. I'm Nancy Medoff, author, speaker, and coach.
And I'm Beth Knaus, creative copywriter and the owner of That's a Spade Copywriting Services. We are done being polite and ready to get real about confidence, boundaries, and self-respect, both personally and in the workplace.
Beth and I first met when we collaborated on the best-selling communication handbook for women, Unmute Yourself and Speak Up to Stand Out. Now we are amplifying our message and taking it on the road with Unmute Yourself, the podcast. Warning, there may be, no, who are we kidding, will be some adult content. We have a bullshit button and we're not afraid to use it.
So buckle up, buttercups, because here we go. Hey girl, hey.
Hey girl, hey. What's going on? We are feisty today. We're feisty.
Everything. We are feisty. We are feisty. It's because we're talking about a good topic.
We're talking about my favorite topic.
Yeah.
Which is?
We're going to talk about getting over this issue with sales.
We're going to talk about stop with the selling nonsense. We're going to talk about showing your value, advocating for yourself, and how to get a seat at the big girls table and boys table, right?
Yes. Yes. So let's talk first about how people have this stereotype of sales. And I'm going to start because in the 10 years that my kids were driving and I bought them cars, which I bought a number because there were accidents and such, only damage to the car. So cars can be replaced, humans cannot, so whatever. But I remember going in and just feeling so vulnerable into used car sales situations. And I remember specifically going to one where I was the only woman in the place. There were no other customers at the time, and there were 3 men. And I felt like the man I was dealing with was just talking to me like he was looking down my cleavage into my wallet. And I knew the second we started to have a conversation, I was like, there is no way I'm spending a penny here.
So let me ask you a question, because I love that you brought up car sales. Let's get back to that in a second. You want to know what I would do now? This isn't a question. If I don't click with somebody, I do it because I'm not going to waste my time. You know what? I feel like we're not clicking. Is there someone else that can help me?
Yeah, that's a great way to do it.
I do it with, I don't do it that often because usually I can kind of figure out what's going on with someone. But if it's a waiter or a waitress, you know what? I can see you're having kind of a bad day and we want to have a great experience tonight. Is there someone else that can wait on us?
Right.
And worst case scenario, they say no and they change their attitude. Best case scenario, they send you someone else. So back to the car salesman. Go.
Yeah. So I think we have these, stereotypes of car salesmen or accident lawyers with cheesy billboards, and you know what? I bet there's a ton of really great accident lawyers out there, but we look at them because of these other folks, right? It makes me think of Better Call Saul. Oh yeah, in a sense. Yeah. So I think we have to get past that. That's not how it is in every industry. And that's not how it is in all industries, right? Goes back to the whole generalizing anything, that you shouldn't really judge something but I think when you have a continued experience in a certain way, you're just like, this is how the whole thing is.
So I'm glad you brought that up. I'm a career salesperson. I spent 30 to 40 years, maybe 30 years in sales. I never once was cheesy. I never once was a used car salesman. And I take offense to people being like, oh, I don't like selling, which I get it. I understand. I don't like selling either, but it's not, that's because when you look at it, like I'm selling, I'm pushing something on you. I'm being aggressive. I'm being Saul. I'm being whoever, the ambulance chaser. Of course you're going to hate it. So reframe and get over yourself, because that's not what it is. It is, right. Are you in business or not? And if you're in business, you're not going to hang a shingle and people are going to come to your business. You have to go out there and nurture your relationships and nurture the business.
Right. And I think you just said the key word. I think a lot of it is about relationships, right? Because I recently had somebody send me a Facebook message. She was a coach. She had friended me and immediately sent me a pitch. No engagement, no, hey, do you want to chat? None of that. And so in a matter of like 6 days, she kept sending me Facebook messages. And then I realized this person isn't even sending these herself.
Right.
Somebody else is sending this.
Yeah.
I got a fourth message. It's not that I'm trying to bother you, is how it started. Yeah, you are. And you are, and I'm just not answering you. And I'm going to unfriend you because this is not, you don't even know if I'm your client. You haven't even vetted me. You could be wasting your time. So if you don't value your time, why should I value it?
Totally agree. And that I think is the key to the reframe, which I really want to drive home to a lot of people, because again, I had a very successful sales career. I was never fake. I was never in your face. It was, I have something that you value and I would love to be able to help you with your problem. I'm not going to do it for free. So let's talk about what that might look like. And at the end of the day, everybody's happy. That's really what you're talking about. So, you know, it's the Better Call Saul, you know, the Better Call Saul, it's too salesy or whatever the case is. That's on you, in my opinion. That's on you. And it's how you're approaching it. Because I never had to do that. And I was highly successful.
Right.
Do I have a little chip on my shoulder about this? I think I might have a little chip on my shoulder.
No, I think that you have every right to speak out because you are that person on the other side of the fence, right? Where on one side, yeah, there's a handful of like sleazy, I don't really know how to do sales right people. Not that I'm judging anybody because everybody has stuff to learn, including myself. But you're on the other side of the fence where you're like, hey, I have this thing. It could work for you. Let's have a conversation. That's a very different way to approach sales, I think.
Yeah, that's always how I approached it. So, why do you think, okay, how often have you heard one of your male colleagues say, I don't want to be too salesy?
Never.
Oh, interesting.
Never.
Why do you think that is?
So I think that, you know, we talk often, it seems to come up with us about this thing about facts and feelings. I don't think men are worrying about what people think. I don't think that they are diving into emotions. I think they're like, I'm at work. This is what I do. This is how I do it. And if I can't sell to this person, they are not my person and I'm going to move on. And they're not worrying about, oh, is my suit the right color? You know, am I using the right language? They are who they are. And they're like, at the end of the day, I'm going to make a living doing this. And I just need to find, you know, who my people are. Otherwise, I'm not going to waste my time on people who don't want to buy what I'm selling.
Totally agree. How do you think we can get women to just start stepping into the fact that, by the way, this is for if you have your own business or if you're in the corporate world. We forgot to mention that. So when we talk about sales, we could be talking about negotiating a salary increase, going for a job promotion, high profile projects. It's really about demonstrating and asking for your value is what we're talking about.
Yes.
I'm going to write that down actually. So how do you think women can get better at that or do that more or get more comfortable with it?
Okay. So, and you can talk to this too from your side of things. So for me, I often think that the women in my circles are not that clear in their stuff, like their messaging, purpose, all that sort of stuff. And so therefore they're constantly dancing around what they say. And they're not saying the same thing every time. Or maybe they're uncomfortable with their elevator pitch. Like if you can't spout your elevator pitch or your tagline or, you know, some copy that you have somewhere like on your website and you can't replicate it, you're not in touch with it. You're not living it, right? It's not coming from inside. Maybe it's something that you hired a specialist for and you were busy setting up your website and making connections and things. And you just kind of delegated that piece. I'm not saying doesn't have some of you in it, but you did not take the time to go deep enough in what you see as your value. And I think that matters on both sides, whether you're working for someone else as an employee or whether you are working for yourself. But if you can't speak clearly about it, you are not clear on what it is you're selling and what the value is.
Totally agree. And by the way, we know this is hard.
Yes.
So I remember when I first started my business, I was all over the place. And I hired coaches and I hired writers and I hired copy editors and I hired copywriters. And I want to say it took a couple of years, honestly. Like, this is hard stuff. So my advice would be, yes, get everybody's feedback, then make it your own. What is it that you do? Why do you do it? And why would people hire you?
Right.
So, and the same thing for somebody that's in the corporate world. What are your strengths? Why do those matter? And why should somebody care? Which is,
Right.
as you know, in the book. But that's tough. That's really tough.
It is tough. And you know what else is tough, I think, for people to accept, particularly women, I'm going to say, you won't sell to everybody.
Mhm.
Not everybody wants what you have. So sell to the people who want what you have.
Mhm.
But if you want them to see the value, you have to believe in the value.
So let's talk about that, because I think this is, we've had many conversations about this and how you're valuing your time, AKA your rates, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I have a couple of friends that started their own businesses, and I think this was in a blog post of mine once. And I started really, really, in my opinion, low in terms of what I charged per hour, very low. And it wasn't until, for me personally, I was having a conversation with my stepson, and he told me what he charged. And he's 20 years younger than me, very smart and very capable and he's excellent. But I'm like, hold on a minute, this kid is charging 3 times what I'm charging, 3 times what I was charging. I changed my rates the next day and I never looked back, because once you change your prices and your rates, and let's get comfortable with this language: price, rate, dollars, contract terms. I find a lot of women dance around that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can
Yes.
call it an investment. That's fine. That's a great sales strategy. Here's what the investment will be in
Mm-hmm.
my time, whatever the case may be. But you're talking about cost, dollars. Once you change it, you're at a different table. And once you're at the different table, you won't go back to the lower table. So the choice is really up to you. You can continue to play in the little pond, or you can go over to the bigger pond where the bigger fish are, where
Mm-hmm.
you will make more money.
Mm-hmm. Right. And when you're at that bigger table and you start owning it and talking like you're from that bigger table, people will assume you get paid like other people at the bigger table, right? And then you will feel better that someone sees your value and you will give more value.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, you might lose 1 or 2 people, maybe 1 or 2 clients. But when I raised my pricing, I lost maybe 1 or 2 pieces of business, 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest just took off. You shift to a
Mm-hmm.
different client.
Yeah.
You attract a
So
different
true.
client.
So
You really
true.
do. Yeah.
So when I first moved to Boston and I had a hair salon, and I had, I don't know, like 8 hairdressers who worked for me, and it would be time to raise prices, right? Once a year or whatever. And when I say raise prices, I'm talking like $3 a haircut, right? These girls would go into a panic. Oh my God, I'm going to lose clients. I'm going to lose clients. And I'd say, you know what? If you're going to lose clients over $3 to $5, let them go, because the new people are going to show up and they're only going to know the new price, and they're going to tip you on the new price.
Mm-hmm.
So this
Mm-hmm.
is a no-brainer. Less
Mm-hmm.
work for more money, right? It gives you time to do better work. It was amazing.
I would say it's the same thing. I'm just thinking with, I'm going to bring it back to the corporate world. Sure. With your salary, right? So, or your title. I don't like titles. I whatever. But once you get to that salary, you will never go back. So if, let's say, you're making $100,000 a year and you want to make $150,000 a year, the minute you say no to $130,000 a year, and you get that $150,000 a year, you are at that table. You're done with $100,000 a year. Same thing with your hourly rates. If you're charging $150 an hour and you want to go to $200 an hour, you do it and you will be done with $150. You won't even think twice about it. You'll be like, sorry, no. I can do it pro bono. I can do it, I type, as I know you do, some pro bono work into my business model. And by the way, that's a way because I'm sure people will be wondering this, how do you say no to the lower rated or lower paying clients? And for me, what I do is I say I have a certain allocation of pro bono hours per month. If you'd like for me to do this for you, I'm happy to do it, but it's going to have to wait until, whatever, a couple months later. And then if I want to do it, I do it. But
Mhm.
I think that's an important piece. You get to the table and you will not go back to the other table.
Yes, I agree. And I'm going to follow that with, I see a lot of women who are like, oh, it's salesy. Oh, I don't, want to take this much money. Oh, I can't raise my prices. And what happens is when you devalue your prices, you devalue other people's prices and think that you can tell other people that they shouldn't charge what they're charging because it makes you feel good that you're not charging enough. But I think that if you're somebody who feels that you need to be doing work like pro bono work or volunteer work, you should decide, right? I'm going to go do X hours of volunteer work or pro bono.
Yep.
And then the rest of the time, I'm going to charge what I'm worth, right? And you're going to feel good about it because you're doing this pro bono over here.
Exactly.
Again, it's definitely like a boundaries thing, right? Like, and separate it. It's not like you do not need to nurture everyone in the world for free. And I think many of us, it's hard to stop. It's another thing that's hard to stop, right? Especially if you're someone who goes back to work, after you've cared for a parent or, if you're caring for a spouse or your kids or whatever, and then you go out into the, professional world, you're not there to care for people. I mean, you're there to work with people and to do a value exchange of, I do this thing that you either can't or don't want to do, or an experience that you want to have, like travel or whatever, but there's an exchange going on. It's not just me showing up as someone who does all the giving, right?
So here, I totally agree. And as you were talking about pro bono, the other thing that I did that really changed the game for me was my pro bono work is in marginalized communities. I'm not going to do something for free because you're asking me to. I know where you live. I see the car you drive. I know what your business model is. No, if I'm going to do pro bono, I'm going to do it for somebody who needs it, not for
Right.
somebody who wants it.
Right.
And that's been a big game changer.
Yeah. That's nice.
Just saying.
Yeah,
Just
that's
saying.
a great, right.
Yeah,
Right.
why not? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the people who really need it, especially in what we do, or anyway, that's another podcast. So we mentioned the word salesy a few times. So we had this conversation with someone last night, right, about how this person gets a lot of about her business from referrals. And I remember you and I were like, that's sales.
Yeah.
So, how can we help people besides, forget about what about Saul? You don't have to do these blind solicitations, right? That's whenever I've done a ton of sales coaching and sales training, we're not talking about what you talked about with the Facebook person that just kept pummeling you. That's not sales to me. That's bad business. What I'm talking about is when you meet someone and they say, oh, Beth, you're a copywriter. I've been thinking about updating my website. Like, how would that fit in? How would you fit into that? How do you get out of your own head? Oh my God, I'm selling now. And instead approach it as a value exchange, like you said.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't think it's something that you consciously say out loud, obviously, but I think, again, being clear on what it is you're offering your client. And like for me, I know my process. This is how it's going to go. I'm going to send you this in-depth questionnaire. Then once you fill it out, we're going to spend an hour on the phone and I'm going to go through that with you. And then we're going to start the project and then I'm going to do some writing and it's a collaborative thing. You need to make time because I'm going to send things to you and you have to like it. Like, I think there are a lot of people that think they pay a writer and then I send them an entire deck of website copy and they have to take it and pay for it. And that's not how I work. I mean, I can't do that. I'm not you, right? I work with people who are their business. And so there's just one person. So I need their feedback, right? I need that feedback, which is a whole nother thing, right? Because people struggle to give feedback sometimes, but I'm going to work with you until you're happy, right? You're going to get a certain number of rounds of edits. We're going to have phone conversations. We're going to, take a look at it once it's up on the website and make sure everything looks right. I mean, it's full service.
So you don't look at it as a sales process. You look at it as a collaboration. Like I'm
Right.
entering into a
Yeah.
collaboration with this person.
Well, yeah. And I think it depends what kind of, thing you're selling. So I'm selling a service, right? Where I'm working with that person. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to give people I'm trying to what I'm trying to get to helping people overcome this fear of sales, right? And
Right.
and that's what we've been talking about for the past few minutes is, the other thing, and I think it might be a mutual friend of ours, maybe not. And this is where I just get tough. Like is it a hobby or a business?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Are you in it? Do you want to make money, or do you want to make a lot of money, or and listen, if you want to chug along and be happy, if you're happy with your hourly rate and you're happy with the amount of business you have, great. But I don't hear people who are happy with that saying, I don't like sales or it's too salesy. They want more business, but they feel like it's yucky to try to go get more business. That's what I think. Or that's what I hear.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's a couple things. I think they might feel yucky about going to get more business. Again, for whatever reason, maybe they're not secure or clear in what they're selling, confident in what to say about what they're selling and all that stuff. I also think there's FOMO around this area, because I think it's hard when you're like on my end of things, and I'm sure it also goes in corporate as well, but when you're around other people who are like, I'm going for it and I'm going to make $1 million and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And you're like, I'm pretty okay over here working, 10 hours a week, making $50 an hour. But you have to decide that that's your goal, because maybe
Exactly.
you want flexibility in time. And that's what you're generating. You're generating enough money to get flexibility in time. Like for a long time, I had an issue with people saying, I'm going to have 10K months. I'm going to have 10K months. And I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to die if I have to work that hard. And I was like, you know what? I don't have to want 10K months. I mean,
Right.
if I get there, great, but I don't have to beat myself into the ground or feel overwhelmed or less than if everyone else around me is going for 10K months. I need to say, good for them. Let me know how I can support you. I'm over here doing this because this is what works for me. So
Exactly.
I think it's easy to get pulled into that vortex of because I think when you say, I'm going to make 10K a month, that's, to me, that sounds salesy. That sounds, I'm all about the money. I'm going to sell until I die, until I get 10K. And it's, and I guess that's okay if that's people feel that way, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but like, I want to write stuff. I want to see my stuff out there, and I want people to be happy with what I write. Yeah. So there's a piece of that for me too. Yeah.
Yeah. I totally know what you're saying. And it's, yeah, I know what you're saying. And I think that you need to decide, this is for your career or your business. What is going to be best for you? So
yes,
you say 10K a month, I say 30K a month, right? But how many 30K a month, how many 30Ks per month do I want? How many 30K months do I want? Because for me to have a 30K month, I'm going to have to be on a plane every week. I'm going to be gone for 3 days, so, and for corporate people, same thing, 30K a month. Like this is $300,000 a year. That is a lot of money. Yes. There are probably some people listening to this podcast that's what they make in corporate America. Great. How often are you on the road? How often are you missing your kid's soccer game? It's a choice, to your point.
Right. Are you working at night? Are you working on the weekends? Yeah.
Right.
Like what are your boundaries, and are there boundaries, and are you happy with them? So I do think that that's part of it too, that you have to be comfortable with what it is you want out of your business, and not to feel less than if other people want something different.
And the greatest moment of all, in my opinion, professionally, is when you are when you have that balance. I could make 30K a month or 10K a month or whatever it is, but right now I'm kind of happy doing what I'm doing. I don't need to grind. I don't want to grind. This is why I went into business for myself, or this is why I work for this company, because I can live the life I want to live with purpose and passion and balance. and that's cool. So I think when you get to that point, your sales become less salesy and more about, I love what I'm doing and I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. So maybe that's part of the key, is to find that balance of, I don't want a 10K month. I'm happy with a 5K month if it means that I can do this, this, and this.
Right. And work with clients that I love and people who love what I do for them. Yes. And I just want to circle back quickly. So our friend with the referrals, right? There's also different levels of sales, and referrals are based on relationships, right? So I get a lot of referrals too, and I love it because it's almost like the people they send you have been pre-qualified, right? You know, the type of people that they know. And so, but that requires investing in relationships, right? Making relationships with people. Like, I think that like you and I know each other well enough that I could refer a client to you and you could refer a client to me. And so it's mutual, and we know that we're looking out for each other. So I think that that's a big part of it too. If you like to have referrals, but you are still selling yourself to that referral, right?
That's right. Right.
I could love and adore you, but if you suck at what you do, I'm not referring you.
Right. Right. I totally agree. Totally agree. Referrals is sales.
Yes.
Yeah. It's all. Yeah. So what do we think about some calls to action for this one? Because I get a few.
Yeah. So I think after this, it's a really great idea to maybe journal about what it is that you don't like about sales, and maybe look at what parts of it or what stereotypes, right? So you can set a strategy around those things. Like, well, I don't want to be the person who says X, or, this is what I do, like referral sales rather than direct sales, like find out where is your comfort. What do you really want to make? And make sure you're clear on where your value is, right? What is your value? Not everybody in your industry's value, but you as an individual. And, is that what your messaging says? And I'm not only talking about your written stuff, about how you speak about yourself.
So it's interesting when you said journal what you don't like about sales. I was coaching someone, I coached someone, and she would always say to me, she might be listening to this actually, I don't want to do the solicitations. I don't want to do the solicitation. I'm like, then don't. She said, what do you mean? I'm like, you're building your business. You have built $1 million business. She hit the $1 million mark in her business, did not make one solicitation. I'm like, you've been agonizing about these blind solicitations and it's too salesy for 12 months. And you never had to do one. So get it out of your head. You're not doing this. You have enough referrals and you have enough of a network that you don't have to do that. So forget it. And she had all this, she was dreading it. And it turns out she didn't have to do it. So to your point, if you don't ever want to go to a networking event, then don't go. Yeah. Figure out a different way to sell your business, right?
You're right. Because if you're uncomfortable there, people are going to see your discomfort and they are not going to work with you.
Exactly. And plus, by the way, it's no fun. And you didn't go into business for yourself to not have fun.
Right. Exactly.
I think that's a great way to end.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay. So bye, girl, bye.
Bye, girl, bye.
Bye, girl, bye. That's a wrap on another episode of Unmute Yourself, the podcast. We hope you found value in today's podcast. We hope you were able to take a little time for yourself and perhaps think about how you're showing up.
And thank you for all of the great feedback we've been receiving. We'd love to hear more from you about what you think, the tactics you're using every day to speak up, and anything else you'd like to hear about on future episodes of Unmute Yourself, the podcast. You can contact us through our websites. Nancy can be found at nancymedoff.com, and Beth can be found at that'saspade.com. Or you can email us at unmuteyourselfthepodcast, all one word, @gmail.com.
We will see you next week, and until then, keep speaking up.